Hi everyone, this is Mr. Hammond. I wanted to introduce you to my flipped classroom approach using a short little video. In this video, I'm going to explain sort of how my classroom is different than the traditional classroom that maybe you're used to, your parents are used to. So hopefully after this video you kind of understand a little bit about what we're doing and why we're doing it. One of the things we're going to talk about is what are we going to do when we're in class, because what we do when we're in class is the most important. So I'm always going to refer to that in-class time or that face-to-face time. How can we make that the most valuable, the most useful, the most worthwhile? So we're going to talk about some in-class stuff and then what we would do sort of outside of class in some of the traditional settings. So if you think of a traditional class, a lot of times in class, the teacher's going to introduce a topic, maybe do it in depth, whether it's let's talk about acids and bases or gases, whatever the concept may be. And that's kind of in a large group instruction, talking to 25 or 30 kids. Sometimes there can be distractions. People are coming at the door, somebody's asking a question, and it's just not a very efficient or effective use of time because we're trying to teach a topic to 25 or 30 people all at the same time. A lot of times we try to do a little bit of lecture, maybe it's a group activity. If there's any time left at the end of the period, maybe we're working through some examples. The thing here is basically trying to get everyone to take steps at the same time. And that's kind of difficult when you're trying to get all 30 people to sort of march together in step. It's kind of difficult to do. Then what we'd hope is, as a teacher, I'd kind of cross my fingers, and when they go home, that they would do some of the work at home, whether that's homework problems, working on a lab, maybe putting together a project. I really wouldn't know what they'd be doing at home. So instead, we're going to kind of flip that around. Out of class, I'm going to introduce a topic through some short little videos. And these short little videos are more like icebreakers. These are not big, in-depth videos that I would necessarily do like in front of a class. I just want them to kind of get some of the top layers of a particular topic, sort of scratch the surface. What I'm doing there is actually providing a small group instruction place. Every student can kind of watch that little icebreaker video. They can pause it, they can rewind it, they can play it again, and everybody's kind of getting the same amount of information, but they're also going to be able to comprehend it a little bit better than if it was in front of a classroom in a group of 25 to 30 students where they can't pause me, rewind me, or do any of those types of things. It gets kind of difficult to do those things. So then what do we do in class? Well, actually, I'm individualizing the teaching. Kind of have one-on-one conversations with the other students. How many layers did they get through? Where did they get stuck? What on that video didn't they understand? If we kind of think of it as going through the alphabet, everybody starts at letter A. Some kids can move through the alphabet a little bit faster going through the steps. Some kids may get all the way to letters R, S, or T. Other kids may only get to letters M and N. Some kids, unfortunately, maybe only get to letters C and D in the sequence. So when they're back in class, I'm getting feedback from them. How much do they understand on their own? What did they get? What did they not get? And it truly is kind of an individualized instruction. So what we're really getting in class is one-on-one interactions or small group interactions. To give you another simple example is, in class, I do an example about a particular calculation. Everybody understands it. They go home, they do the first two problems on their own. They're like, oh, I got that. They get to problem number 3. They're stuck. They don't know what to do. So what do most kids do at home? They close up their book and stop. Well, we kind of flip that around. They're at home. They watch the easy examples. They're like, oh, I kind of got that. They come into class. Maybe they work on problem number 1 and number 2, and they get that. But they get to problem number 3, and it's kind of a curveball. They don't know what to do. Well, now instead of closing their book up when they're at home, now they just raise their hand, and I walk around the room, and like I said, deal with sort of everybody's individual and unique issues and instructions. So again, when I talk about making the class time valuable, here's what we're actually doing. Kind of creating a situation where students are kind of driving the learning themselves. It's kind of a semi-self-paced approach. We sort of all start at step step A, the very first step. But then students can kind of start to move things through at a little bit different pace. What I kind of say is, hey, we've got a certain amount of work to do in class for a particular chapter. But how you slice up that work and when you do that work is kind of up to you. You've got some freedom, some time management opportunities there to be in control. Kids are in sports, they're in clubs, they work, they get home late on a Monday night. Maybe they can't get to their chemistry Monday night. That's okay. But they better get to it Tuesday night or Tuesday in study hall, things like that. So again, it's just like a project working for, in a group for your job. You've got X amount of work to do. You get to decide sort of how to divide that work up. Now, we still do labs on the same day for safety, and we still take tests on the same day. But that in-between time, they have the freedom to divide that up however they want to. Some people might wondering, okay, you do all these videos. What is that? Well, maybe your parents, if they're watching, they might know this. This song actually was MTV's very first video ever played. It was called Video Killed the Radio Star. Well, it doesn't actually replace a teacher. So as you can hear this, you may want to even look it up, but this is the very first video, and my point is, the video isn't going to replace what I teach. It is only going to help supplement and start the service. So, with that being said, if you really want to look this video up, you can, or your parents, if they are hearing this, they may have heard this growing up. I want to talk about Bloom's taxonomy a little bit. And for some of you students, maybe what is Bloom's taxonomy, maybe a little bit more than what we want to get into, but I'll just briefly talk about it. Think about in a traditional class. In class, we're trying to remember a topic, we're trying to remember a concept, we're trying to understand, we're trying to apply a calculation, things like that. Well then, do we have time to analyze it? Do we have time to do an experiment in class? Do we have time to kind of figure out things, create things, and sort of apply them in different ways? We kind of start running out of time because we only got so much to do in class. And then out of class, you got to do kind of the bigger stuff and the harder stuff. I want to do the opposite. What we want to do is, out of class, I want you guys to remember and understand and do some of those practice problems and kind of scratch the surface. And then we're working our way up. So what are we going to do in class? We're going to analyze. We're going to evaluate. We're going to reapply things. We're going to sort of look at labs more and maybe look at the data. So we're kind of working to that point where in class, we're doing kind of that big stuff. And we're doing it together, not at home, where you're sort of by yourself. So that's kind of the concept of we're flipping. We're putting things in different places, whether it's in school or out of school. Last thing I'll say, and again, your parents may be interested in it, on YouTube there is a Seinfeld clip. It's kind of funny, but it talks about Bloom's taxonomy and different episodes of Seinfeld and how that would apply to all these different learning styles and learning situations. So the class. What did I kind of do before? Well, I was really in charge of the class. I taught probably 60% of the time. Maybe 3.5, 4 days a week, I was kind of the one teaching every day and giving you the instruction. We were trying to sneak in a lab 1 or 2 days, and maybe there'd be a few minutes here and there where students were kind of the ones in charge and telling me what to do and how to ask things. Now it's the complete opposite. 3, 4 days a week, students walk in, they're completely in control. They're deciding what to do, they're asking questions, they're telling me what they need to know, and we're doing that. Frees up a little bit more time to do labs because, again, students are creating a little bit of space and pace for themselves, and I'm now doing very little of that time. And so some of those things we can kind of change a little bit. So now I really ask the question, who's in control now? It's no longer the teacher. The students are driving instruction. The students are driving their learning. They're the ones that are going to decide how quickly things are going to go and what they're going to learn. So you might ask me, what's in a typical day? Well, for me, I have no idea. Those kids are going to walk in that door, and what I want those kids to have is a to-do list. I'm hoping they watched videos the night before. They kind of went through maybe some of the practice problems, maybe read the section, and they got to a point where they were stuck. So now they're coming in, and they're going to ask these questions. Mr. Hammond, I got stuck on this. Can you help me with this? I understood this, but I didn't understand that. Somebody else might say, oh, I got all that, but I got a kind of this different question. My uncle's a chemical engineer, and I was really curious about this. That's a little one-on-one individualized instruction that wouldn't have taken place in another situation. Maybe another student said, I watched all the videos, I tried to do all the homework, I didn't get any of it. Well, I'm going to sit down with that particular student maybe for 10 minutes and try to work with them one-on-one. Maybe a couple other kids are like, oh, I think I got it. Can you just give me one more example just to be sure? And right there on the spot, I'd give them one more example, and then we'd be good. So that's kind of the typical day. Because again, what are they doing? The students are coming in with a to-do list. Last thing I want to give you here, because again, I don't want these videos to be too long because people get disinterested. But I've got a couple myths up here. I like Mythbusters a lot, so I put one up here, and also a couple translations of some quotes that you might hear. So you can kind of briefly read these, wondering about what's actually going on, and well, my son or daughter is saying this, and so you can kind of look at this and figure that out. Are students learning on their own? No, not completely. They're just sort of introducing the topic to themselves through one of my videos. Then I pick up with the students one-on-one, kind of where they get stuck. You might hear the phrase, well, Mr. Hammond doesn't teach in class. Well, you're right. I don't teach all 25 or 30 of them at the exact same time. What I do is one-on-one instructions. Where do I teach them in class, or at least teach them in those topics at the beginning? That's those short little videos. You may get the phrase, he never explains anything in class. Well, again, if they're saying that, they may not have watched those introductory videos to sort of scratch that surface. If they're saying, well, I didn't do this, or Mr. Hammond didn't do that, that'll be one of the first questions I ask. And if they haven't watched those videos, that's where they got to go first. That's step one. If they have, then that's where I pick up, where they're stuck. You might hear the phrase, well, Mr. Hammond hijacked the class today. Well, what does that mean? Well, actually, it may have been a tough topic that a lot of people are struggling on, or something else that I just decided, today I'm just going to talk to all of you at the same time. I'm going to teach to all 25 or 30 of you just to make sure everybody's in the right direction. So those are a couple things that come up. Please, if you have any questions, I'd like to hear them. Anything that I can help answer, it'd be really helpful to clean those misconceptions up, or any of those questions you have, because I definitely want everybody to understand this and feel comfortable with it, because if we all get to do all the parts the right way, this can be a really good way for students to learn chemistry. So again, thanks for taking the time to kind of watch this video, and please let me know if there's anything else I can answer. Thanks.